Next, we have the first of two reports that fall under the principal's report. The first report is the second semester school culture report. This is an annual report that includes a second semester discipline and attendance information along with engagement in our extracurricular activities. So this time I'd like to invite Mr. Mannon, Assistant Principal of Student Affairs, to come up, and the report begins on page 8 of board book.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I'm here tonight to review our student average daily attendance. That's the first report we're going to look at. And suspension offenses from second semester, as well as provide a brief overview of our extracurricular activity participation from the entire 18-19 school year. To start, we're going to look at our attendance report from second semester. Looking at that data, we ended up with a 93.75% average. The semester was riddled by significantly colder weather than in previous semesters, which seemed to linger on into May for most of us that were outside doing the traffic control. We also had a week of extreme weather at the end of January, which impacted our end of the year percentages as well. On January 28th, school was open and we had 84% ADA that day. Something positive to report on during this blast of dangerous weather was utilization through our one-to-one initiative with our e-learning days, which netted an average of 94.3% over the two assigned day, which was a very successful initiative and something that I think we all had positive feedback from. So that was great. Moving on into the second category, total attendance by reason and month. We separated this chart into two categories: averaged excused absences and averaged unexcused absences. In review of the first boxes chart, the cold weather in January you see impacted our excused callouts as we rose from an average of 69 students per day to 80. February saw a decline of 5 students per day, and the remaining 3 months saw similar averages over the last 2 years. So overall, we had around 68 students that had a recorded excused absence on a daily basis second semester. And that's pretty similar to where we were at last year as well. In review of the unexcused absence category, the second semester per day average was down from 13 students to around 10, which is a good thing. Initiatives that assisted some of these positives in the category have been the creation through the Health Office of attendance protocols, as well as the Attendance Matter link that's under the parent tab on our website. And we continued our senior final exemption qualification. Students that had a cut, senior students that had a cut or unexcused in their attendance markings were not able to qualify for their final exemptions, and thus we had more students accounted for and in the building as well.
So that's a significant reduction, so congratulations to the team working on that.
Yeah, thank you. In review of the target data second semester, we stayed consistent within the last couple of years after the rollout of our HERO program. For the semester, we averaged around 11 students targeted to class per period per day. This number was down from 13.6 in 2016 and over 19 in 2015. So since the rollout of HERO, really saw a decline in the amount of students that are in our hallways, and thus increasing the amount of students that are in classrooms and engaged in lessons and instruction. So that's a great win. At the bottom of the report is our total attendance for the year. In a review of our overall attendance, we came in around 94.6%, which is a slight increase from 94.5%. Given the weather that we had a really positive attendance marking over 95%, which is close to our district goal for first semester, and we thought we were going to get that at the end. We were really encouraged by everything, and then we had some weather that impacted that, which happens. Last year we had the Cubs rally, so there's things that always come up, that impact our average daily attendance, but we really want to thank our deans for getting ahead of this, and we're going to go into some additional things here in a second, which our dean's offices are doing to get ahead of our students out of class or out of the school and in class. So other notes, the deans with the assistance of our school safety liaison, Mr. Neiman, they completed over 65 home visits. And those home visits were done after all of our interventions are exhausted, after we do the parent call-ins, the parent meetings, the interventions with student services, with the special ed department. After we're kind of at the end of the road, then we're going to go out to the house and visit our students to see what's going on and if we can't get them to class. The Riverside Police Department, after we've done those home visits, and again, after exhausting interventions, issued over 22 truancy tickets for students, and that's when students would go to court, see a judge, and then they would talk about what they can do to get them back into school and how we can assist them in doing that.
Have we seen, what's the success rate on once a student gets a truancy ticket?
Really successful. Positive attendance probably 9 out of 10 times. So
Really?
It's something that's impactful, and we don't utilize it a lot. Again, it's after all our interventions are exhausted, but we've seen great impact from our students on that end. So that's why we use that, and it's a great partnership with Riverside on that as well.
So who gets the ticket, the parent or the student?
The student. And they go to court, they get assigned a date, and our deans go out to that meeting, and they're the advocate from the school, and we're able to talk over with the judge what we can do and how we can assist in helping them get back. So it's another resource that we can offer. So, but it's also one of our last ones as well. So,
Is there a fee they have to pay?
there's no fee. It's either an intervention that the judge hands out and or community service. So that's something that our deans again advocate for our kids to.
Okay.
So I'm
get a
assuming
program
it's an
established.
administrative hearing, right? So there's no
Correct.
record.
No record.
Okay.
No, it's a juvenile hearing, correct. Other new initiatives this year, the Attendance Matter link under the Parents tab provided resources for our parents such as attendance protocols, research on significance of seat time and student successes, as well as daily health and nightly routines our students can use to increase their sleep and productivity during the school year. In addition to our Attendance Matter link on our Parent tab, our psychologists, the deans, and myself went to professional development on absenteeism. And we're working together as a team to really continue initiatives that we started this year with the Attendance Matter link and kind of pushing that forward. And so when the new handbooks come out and students will be given those at residency, you'll see like one of the first 2 pages, we have health protocols, why attendance matters, and putting that really up in front of our students and parents so they can see, why do I need to get my kid to school? And then on the back end, if they're sick, what do I need to do? Or if they're sick enough, where do I do to call them out? So there's a whole bunch of protocols, and we wanted to just promote that and put that in front of our handbook, which we did. And that's some of the outcomes that the team had from our conference and through conversations. Any questions on attendance?
I think you had some questions that were submitted by 2 board members for the discipline report, and that's what you're moving into next, correct?
Correct. Some of the, in the narrative that I'll be talking about, I built in some answers to your questions. So if I don't answer them, please let me know, but it should be built in here as we go along. So the second report is going to be our second semester suspension offense report. Before looking at the data, I will note that we had 0 suspension offenses relating in alcohol, gang, theft, or weapon possessions. So we had 0 offenses, 0 suspensions for those categories. In the remaining categories, let's first look at the drug possession and vape offenses. There was a question in this category, so to be clear, the numbers in this category relate specifically to smoking THC devices and or being in possession of a THC device or under the influence of THC. So those are the only areas in which this category we had offenses and suspensions.
So if 22's total offense is 15, so obviously 7 kids did this. Or 7 of those 15 kids are
Correct.
multiple offenders.
Yeah, and I'll break it down here in a second.
Okay.
So we do not suspend automatically for students in possession of vape devices with nicotine. For these offenses, students are referred to Riverside Police Department, who issue tickets upwards to $200 in some cases for repeat offenders, and are provided an administrative action such as like an alternative day assignment and or referred to our Rosecrans partnership for counseling. We had 29 related nicotine offenses. This is not on your chart, and it's nothing that we suspended for. It's something that we're working with our students internally on, and we have a partnership with the Riverside Police Department for as well. Our deans go out to our state conference each year, and this is a conversation. This is something that's increasing in schools, not only in the state, but across country. And we're kind of getting ahead of it by hitting the students with a ticket right off the bat. Since it's so rapid, we need to get in front of it. And, just in conversations with Riverside, we thought it would be good not to put them in front of a judge, but let's get them right in the pocketbook right off the bat and have a deterrent so that they don't do this again. as well as we don't want to consequence a kid if they do have a vape with nicotine in it. We don't want to have them lose the opportunity of instruction. So we're going to put them in our in-school room. We're going to support them. We're going to have their work provided to them and then push in resources, which I'll talk about in a little bit, through our in-school room as well.
So is the THC possession referred to Riverside Police for ticketing?
Yes.
Okay, I just didn't hear that part. I wanted to understand.
And we'll go into that in a little bit as well. So for this chart, when we go back and look at the chart, 22 students had total THC-related suspendable offenses this year. So 14 students were in possession of THC-related devices. 8 were caught smoking a device and/or under the influence. We had 6 repeat offenders and 1 3-time offender in this category. So it's a pocket of students that are continually doing this. So that's why you see a total of 15 students and then the 22 offenses in this category. So again, this is something that our dean's office is working on along with their school safety liaison. We not only have we done communication through posters throughout the building, had conversations with our kids through our grade level assemblies. I put a letter out to our parents about the harming effects of vapes and THC related devices and things like that. We're going to continue to get ahead of this next year. We're going to set aside additional time with our freshman and sophomore class. We see a lot of the offenses coming from those grade levels, and so we're going to get ahead and push some programming into that, as well as last year we did a big push into community-wide events, whether it's through the Angst or Screenagers and things like that. We're going to do another session in the fall just on vapes and vape devices. We also did an institute with our staff where we brought in what we collected through the dean's office for a semester. We showed them, here, this is what's present in your classrooms, because believe it or not, kids do this in the classrooms as well, so that they're aware of it. We inform them. We utilize Rosecrans, our partnership, to come out as well and provide us information, and the school nurse is pushing out information as well to our staff. So we're hitting it from different angles. Obviously, we need to do more. It's a growing thing. It's a growing trend in our schools and across country, and so we'll continue to do what we can do to get in front of it and educate our parents and educate our students as well. To answer your question about THC-related offenses, it is a call to the police department, and instead of an automatic fine, the police department wants that student to see a judge. And so that judge will then hand out, if it's a first offense, either community service, an alternative action, and or potentially a fine for second or third offenses. So that's how we handle that as well. Our next category is fights. We saw an increase in total student fights from 7 to 12 and total offenses from 4 to 13. Last year was kind of an anomaly. We had a really good class last year. Second semester, we had a really good second semester. This year, we had 1 repeat offender that fought twice, and then 7 were from the freshman class, 5 from the sophomore class, and 1 from the junior class. To counteract this trend, we've been creating additional time with our freshman class. Next year in our grade level assemblies, bringing in speakers to discuss positive behavior and culture in our building. In addition to these events, we've also utilized our social workers as a resource in our restorative interventions in our alternative assignment room, which has yielded a 2.2 student repeat rate over 50 students participating in the program. What that means is basically if a student is assigned an alternative day assignment, we thought this year with the increase in social workers that was allotted, let's push them in to work with our kids that are in the in-school room and then have pull-out meetings with them. So over the 50 students that they've met with this year, only 2 of those students repeated their offense, which is fantastic. And so we're going to continue to push that forward. And have really good data to back that up from our social workers as well. So we know that works. We know pulling them out, let's talk about what your offense was, how we can do things better. Instead of hitting them with the suspension or taking them out of the building, let's talk through and communicate things through them. So that worked really well, and we'll continue to do that next year. In the remaining categories, we saw inappropriate or non-compliant behavior. It had 12 total student suspensions through 15 instances in this category. And that would be maybe a student has a verbal with an administrator, or a student has some language with a teacher, and this is after repeated redirection or something like that, where it's the last chance we have to suspend them out. So we saw 15 instances in that category. Within the last category, was the other, and that happened in May. We had some vandalism around campus, and so we had 3 students that were suspended for that category. So in total, we had 44 students suspended second semester, and then 55 offenses throughout the school year.
Can I ask, for most of the suspensions just a 1 day?
Correct. Yeah, and with the new Senate bill, every case is on its own merit, and so it depends on the severity. If it's a repeat offense, it might be a couple days. We go no more than 3. After 3, it's a
that's what I was
conversation
gonna
with the
ask.
administration team. So. And the board. So that's something that we really try to stick with. One, get the student right back in school. We might utilize our ADA room a little bit more. So we may go one day out, 1 day in, push in social work, push in the student support team. And so that's kind of how we leverage that a little bit. So
ADA, just to explain to the group.
yeah, alternative day assignment. It's a room where a student would be kind of reserved for that space for the day. They would get their homework assigned to them. It's great that we're 1-to-1 because everything's through Schoology. They can log in, they can see their assignments, and then we push in supports, whether it's through social work, whether students with IEPs, they can get their pull-out support, and then we do conferences with them. And they also do student reflections in there as well, something we started 2 years ago. It's a student reflection packet, and it's an incentive that we built in. So students are really there from the start of school till 3:15. We hold them. And if they want to get out earlier, 3:05, then they're able to complete that packet and they get out when everyone else does. And that gives us some good data and some reflection, student reflection from their end as to what's going on and why are they in there.
Who works in that room all day? Is it a sub or?
Security, and then we rotate security through, and then
Throughout
our
the
deans
day.
go in there, and so do our social workers and support staff. So. From the data that we've had this year so far with the 2 repeat offenders, we don't have repeat visitors in there too often because it's a day it's not fun. You're in one place for the entire day, and so we typically don't see repeat offenders in there, and it's been useful for us. So we'll continue to look to modify and adapt and enhance that as well.
How does the 44 student suspensions total compare with the long-term trend? I mean, is that, is it just now starting to rise, or is that not necessarily out of the ordinary?
I think we had a freshman class that came in that continues to need a little bit of work from us, and it's a pocket of students, and it's probably no more than 30 students that have had repeat offenses that have added to this total a little bit. So that's kind of an area that we need to continue to work on and pull those kids out. At the start of the school year, the psychologist, myself, and the deans, we look at early warning data. So we look at referrals from last year, attendance, suspensions, and we take those students and then we pull them out. So our psychologist will take a slot of students, maybe 5-10 students per, and then they meet with them weekly to just assign like kind of a check and check out process. And so that's something that we'll continue to do. And then just continue to partnership with their parents, and hopefully some maturity over the summer will help us as well. So, but I don't see it as a growing trend. It's just one of those things where we had a bad year with a pocket of students, and we'll work through that. We identified it. That's the biggest thing, and then we're going to communicate and work with our parents to solve some of the issues going forward. So,
What's our total student body number?
1,700,
Like 1640.
1640.
1640, so even if, I was just kind of curious, when we think of the 44, sorry,
Yes.
hold on, so it was the 44 and you said 16,
1640 roughly.
okay.
Just under 10%.
So just to put it in perspective, it's less than 0.5% for, suspension, which is really great.
Yeah, and I think with Senate Bill 100, it used to be a quick out for the dean's office, not necessarily here, but in other schools I've been at as well. It was, you do this, you're out for a day, and now we've really had to look at interventions instead of going to a suspension right off the bat. We push in more interventions through in school and things like that. So that's why you've seen, if you look at historical data in the 5 years, probably like before me, you're probably looking at 80 per semester, and that's cut down at half now. So it's been.
But it's been an
done.
increase over the last 2 years for second semester.
Correct.
So.
Yep.
I think the thing too that we were really working on as an administration is the ability for Dave to break down for you. Hey, it was 3 seniors, 2 freshmen, 1. Right. So we're really diving into the data to find out if there's something we need to be doing differently, were these some anomalies, as you heard about the freshman class needing a little extra work. And the addition of a .6 social worker last year allowed us to do the push-ins into the in-school
Correct.
suspension room and to do some additional interventions in small groups. And one of the things we're looking at possibly doing under Dr. Freitas is even a little peer mediation, so.
We have peer mediation already. It's up and running this school year, and it started the year before that as a pilot. So this is the first school year that we've been up and running with peer mediation.
It's a program where if we have like a verbal altercation, we have 5 students that were trained through our psychologists in kind of like mediating conversations with students. We're still working out the kinks, so I think with Dr. Freitas' help, he could come in and help us work how that program can kind of get off and running. We used, I think, 5 mediations this year, and so we want to obviously do more of that. And so he can help smooth the turbulence out with some of that stuff. But it is here, it's set up, and it's called restorative practices, and that's like the big buzzword right now in education, and that's one of our restorative practices, to utilize that instead of maybe a detention. Kids can go through opt-in to a peer mediation. And so we'll look forward to his advice, and we'll go from there next year. So,
Are there any other questions we didn't cover, Dave, or things you wanted to touch on from the discipline report?
No, I just think it was a pretty good year. The weather impacted a little bit on our overall ADA, but historically, if you look at from where we're at in 2014, where we ended at in 93 to now we're at almost 94.6, things are looking up for our attendance and where we're at with kids in the building. So it's been a positive thing, and I know our deans have been working tirelessly to get kids here, and it's a really unique thing. I've worked in a couple of high schools in large districts, and we really take an individualistic approach with our attendance, and our deans know our students, they know our parents, and it's a really good relationship that they form with our parents. And so I'm proud to have them, and I think we have a good team downstairs. So,
Dave, you had one other report you needed to go through, the clubs.
Yeah, this is a fun report to talk about each year. So the last report I have is a breakdown of our extracurriculars and our participation of all of our students throughout the last year. In total, we have a significant jump from 1,111 to 1,338. And I thought that looked fantastic today when I was looking at the numbers. I'm like, wow, we're really doing big things. But I'm going to point out that we counted our junior and senior class in our NHS number. So our NHS number is actually 123 and not 215. That would have been great. But we did add more kids to NHS this year, which is fantastic, than in the previous year of 102. So that's great. So we're actually at 1,246, which is a pretty good jump still considering. So 1,246 students involved in an extracurricular, and that's just on the activity side. That's not in the sport or anything like that. So we've done a lot within the past couple of years to increase our program offerings, and so I'll talk about that a little bit here. We currently have 39 official clubs and 5 clubs on a probationary status. That's just basically means that they're within their first or second years of an official program on campus. Highlights from this report include the continued success of our Best Buddies program. Our sponsors, Ms. Soprich and Mr. Zillinger, have done a wonderful job connecting students and their experiences for their kids, and it remains one of our most popular and well-attended extracurriculars on campus. The one area that has benefited from, I think, the cold weather, if you look at our ski club numbers,
Wow.
That jumps a lot.
34 to
There's your
101. The ski club was able to host 3 outings this year and saw membership increase, obviously there. And I was fortunate to go on 2 of the 3 outings, and I saw firsthand how this club provides like an engaging, fun, collaborative experiences for our kids. So Mr. Shermack and all of our chaperones, we couldn't do it without them, but it's a really cool experience going out there and seeing kids who haven't skied before build up that confidence, and at the end of the day they're going down Black Diamonds and stuff, and it's a pretty neat thing. So I love going on those, and I thank Mario for his help there. Another area that flourished was our robotics program, who won a couple awards, like a first-year rookie award and then another tech award. This program started out of a grant and some additional donations, and we fully adopted it last year. It's really cool to see that we have 27 members, and just about an hour ago I'm getting an email about additional devices that they want to buy and build and adapt our robots and things like that. And so that program is flourishing, and I love that we added some STEM offerings here on campus, and that happened a couple of years ago, and that'll continue to go forward here.
So quick question on the probationary. So their totals are not included up above. Do you have an estimate? Oh, is that what the parentheses are? Okay.
Correct, down below.
Reading is sometimes challenging. There we go. Thank you.
So the probationary status is
Yeah.
in the contract. There is a extracurricular stipend committee, and they meet annually before the end of the year to just review the stipend schedule, review student participation, stipends assigned, stipends not assigned. And so what we put in place a few years ago was if students wanted to start another club that we didn't have, they had to go through like a 2-year probationary status. They had to find a teacher to volunteer to supervise the club for 2 years. They had to keep track of their enrollment and their activities, and then at the end of their second year, they submit that club to the stipend committee, and then we review if they've had enough participation and enough interest to warrant being awarded a stipend for and becoming like an official club at the high school.
Okay.
And so this past year, I think we've added Pause. Kristen, is it on? I don't know if it's- Helping Pause is on there. That's a new one. Erica's Lighthouse, I thought was one that we moved up or added on. Do you remember off the top of your head, Kristen, from negotiations, the Girls at Code was one, and Helping Pause, I thought, were two, maybe the two.
And robotics.
Robotics.
Thank you.
And those are just offerings that kids come to me and they say, hey, I want to start this club. And we get that probably once a week. And I said, okay, hold on. Let's find a sponsor, get 25 kids to go with you, and let's do it. And luckily, we have a great staff that'll just volunteer their time for a couple of years. And then if we have just a great involvement with our kids, such as we did with robotics, and we're going to roll with it, and we'll bring that to negotiations or whatnot, and then make that an official thing. And that's what happened with robotics. So something that's trending right now that's along the lines of robotics is Girl Up Club, and that's something that we started this year, and that's all about women empowerment and things like that. And so they had 30 girls, close to 30 girls that wanted to do that club, and we have a great sponsor, Melissa Carmona, and so we were able to get that up and running, and they already had a fundraiser and raised a whole bunch of money, and they're doing their thing. So we encourage our kids to come to me and talk about offerings that they want to do. And next year, we're going to start a reading club that's official. We have one, but we're going to officially name a reading club next year and look to do more with our students. Lastly here, our fishing club numbers are a little bit down. There's a couple of areas that are down: fishing, OLAS, and Spanish. And fishing, we had turnover with our advisor. And so we knew that we were going to be down a little bit, and the program that used to come out and do fly fishing techniques and stuff like that kind of dropped off, and so did some of our student enrollment in that. But one thing we did pick up this year was the first time our fishing club actually went out and competed in an IHSA event, and so we almost actually qualified for state on the first time we were out there. So we had 4 students on 2 boats, and we were like a couple fish away from qualifying for a state competition.
We had a parent donate a boat, and I think Mr. Monahan used his father's boat.
Yeah, we had 2 boats, and Mr. Monahan donated his time, and it was great. And so we'll look for increased numbers based on that going forward. And then with our Spanish and OLAS programs, we did have another turnover in staff, and anytime you have that.
What is OLAS? I'm sorry.
OLAS is just the Organization of Latin American Students.
Okay, thank you.
And so they come together, they do different cultural activities throughout the semester. I know we're trying to get an event here, an after-school event, started up next year. And so we're talking to the lead student leader of that group, and they just thought that, kids are really spread out here. And I'm going to do a report. I'm going to come back in the fall and talk about where kids are at and how many sports or activities are they included in. And so they just know, like, second semester, you got AP tests, you got a lot of things going on. What could we do? Look at the calendar and put, like, a specific event in place where we can get more involvement. So that's something that we'll do with our kids going forward here. And then lastly, I took 30 kids to 2 separate leadership events on building culture and climate. And from those conversations, we developed a remind application for students to hear building updates throughout the year. So if parents or students are listening, you can text RBHS events to 8-10-10, 8-10-10, and just put RBHS events. And I have posters throughout the building, and you'll get every update from me of what's going on. And that's through a Remind application. And I use it for, hey, proms, at 5 o'clock, such and such date, be here. We have, such and such activity going on in this building tonight. Come out and support us. And it's just a good way for kids to hear what's going on and be involved. So,
do we have a minimum amount of kids to have a stipend?
we look for 25. That's on the sheet, and then hopefully that's sustainable as we go forward. One of those right now on that status is hip hop. We had 25, and then we came back to 10. So we want to have more around 20 or 25. So we'll look to increase that so we can look to maybe get them up running as an official program going forward here. So
We also have, when we meet with that club, if Dave collects this information, and this is, so next May when we meet, if we see that there's a decline in that, we look at possibly, does that club need to be moved lower on the stipend schedule? Does that, now with the new contract language, does that club need to be frozen for a year until they can increase participation? Some of those things.
that's all I have on this report. Any questions?
Your participation fees are on the next page, right, Dave? I don't
Yes.
think you received any, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and I didn't see any questions come in on that.
Pretty similar. Our kids pay either a competitive fee or a participation fee, and we just collect fees based on that, and they're pretty similar. There's nothing really that stands out too much from what we've seen in previous years with the collection on that, and that's done through our business office, and our sponsors take care of that. We have a beginning of the year activity meeting where we review expectations, and that's kind of that's just something that's already built in with our activities. So.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.